The white SUV hit the gravel hard and slid to a stop just short of the gate. Before the engine even quieted, Karen Voss was out, crossing the county road with the kind of speed that came from pure entitlement. In her bright dark pink blazer, matching trousers, pearl earrings, and perfect golden curls, she looked less like a neighbor and more like she had come to reclaim something that was never hers. She grabbed the iron bars and shook them, hard enough to rattle dust from the hinges. The lock held. Behind that gate, on 40 acres of private land, Evan Mercer stood still with coffee in one hand and survey papers in the other, watching the HOA president unravel in real time. He had expected tension. He had not expected a public performance. Karen had arrived certain that volume would substitute for authority, but the gate stayed closed, the lock stayed solid, and the line on the ground stayed exactly where the county had drawn it. The moment she touched those bars, the whole conflict stopped being a neighborhood annoyance and became a test of who actually owned the truth. Evan had spent decades as a county surveyor and boundary consultant, the kind of work that trained him to trust records more than opinions. Retirement was supposed to be quiet, so he bought the land for space, privacy, and a slower life. Callaway Ridge looked harmless from a distance. Tidy homes, trimmed lawns, and an HOA that claimed to keep everything orderly. But order was only what the board displayed in public. Evan started noticing the small things first. A widow was fined over a wind chime. A young couple was pushed over a basketball hoop. A boat trailer belonging to a board friend sat in full view all summer without consequence. Karen Voss, the board president, moved through meetings in her dark pink jackets with polished confidence and an expression that made disagreement feel expensive. She spoke about the open land north of the subdivision, like it belonged in the community's orbit, using phrases that sounded official but never appeared in any filed document. Evan checked the plat maps, the deed chain, and the CCRs before he ever bought the parcel. The land was clean. No covenants, no easements, no HOA jurisdiction. That was the first thing Karen underestimated. He wasn't guessing. When the 40-acre parcel came up for sale, Evan bought it because the records made sense, and the space would give him exactly what he wanted. He installed the gate for privacy and security, not as a challenge. Karen treated it like a personal insult anyway. Within days, she drove up, photographed the lock, and posted the image in the HOA's channels as if a private boundary had become a community violation. A written demand followed, citing a rule that only applied inside the subdivision and pretending it reached his land beyond the platted line. Evan pulled the county records, checked the jurisdictional boundary again, and found nothing that gave the HOA access to his property. His response asked for a recorded document number. None came. Instead, Karen escalated through her attorney, sending a polished letter that sounded official while offering no real authority. The whole exchange revealed her pattern. She did not build cases on law. She built pressure on assumption. If enough people were intimidated, she never had to prove anything. For the first time, Evan understood that the gate was not the problem. Karen could not tolerate a boundary she could not command. That is when the neighborhood pressure turned into a campaign. Karen used the clubhouse corkboard, the newsletter, and board meetings to turn a private parcel into a public storyline. She called the north boundary a safety issue, then repeated it often enough that some residents stopped questioning it. Simplified maps appeared that conveniently left out the actual jurisdiction line. Support forms were passed around. A few homeowners signed because they trusted the board more than the records. Then the behavior crossed into physical intrusion. 2 board members appeared near Evan's back fence, taking photos from the wrong side of the line and stepping through a damaged section of old fencing without permission. Evan photographed the footprints, the gap, and the people standing where they should not have been. He saved every notice, every map, every board memo, and every picture. Then Karen escalated again by filing for a temporary injunction. This time, the claim was bigger and more dangerous. She said the gate blocked emergency access and created a safety hazard. That was no longer petty HOA pressure. It was the kind of claim that could influence a judge if it went unanswered. The fight had become legal, public, and immediate. Evan brought the file to Joanna Hargrove, a real estate attorney known for handling boundary disputes in the county. She reviewed the documents with the kind of calm that only comes from years of seeing bluster collapse under paperwork. The safety claim was the only piece that deserved attention, and even that had a weak foundation. Karen had no county engineer report, no emergency services review, and no recorded right-of-way. She had a theory and a loud voice. Meanwhile, Evan built the record the right way. He pulled the certified plat, the CCRs, the recorder's confirmation, the county parcel map, and the original 1999 survey record he had filed years earlier. Every document matched. Every line ended where it should. Former residents provided written statements describing how Karen had used fines, warnings, and selective enforcement to keep people quiet. The file was no longer just a defense. It was a mirror showing exactly how far Karen had stretched her authority. When the hearing date was set, Evan had something Karen did not. He had proof that survived outside her narrative. That proof had one important advantage. It did not need to argue. It only had to exist. The hearing room was small, quiet, and packed with people from Callaway Ridge who wanted to see who would blink first. Karen arrived in her dark pink suit, golden curls fixed in place, acting like the room still belonged to her. Her attorney leaned into the safety argument, but the judge cut straight to the point by asking for a recorded easement. None existed. Joanna then placed the certified plat map on the bench, followed by the CCRs, the county recorder confirmation, and the 1999 survey record with Evan's signature on it. The judge looked from one document to another, then back to the attorney, and the room changed in an instant. The line Karen had spent weeks pretending did not matter was there in black ink, stamped, certified, and permanent. Evan confirmed that he had drawn the boundary years earlier, and the legal fiction collapsed. The injunction was denied. The HOA's rule citation was noted as inapplicable. The safety claim was dismissed for lack of proof. Karen's expression tightened, then emptied, then hardened into the look of someone realizing the performance is over and the audience can see the wires. For the first time, she left without the room moving with her. The county followed with a letter that made the ruling impossible to twist. Evan's parcel carried no HOA covenants, no easements, and no jurisdictional rights for Callaway Ridge. The letter went into the county file, and the HOA's lawyer warned the board that any further action could bring sanctions for frivolous filing. The money Karen spent came from the reserve fund, which meant every homeowner helped pay for the fight she had chosen and lost. At the next board meeting, the questions finally came from the people who had stayed silent too long. Why was legal money spent on a claim the records never supported? Why were board members photographing private land? Why had the board acted like a boundary could be created by confidence alone? A new rule passed requiring independent legal review before any future filing. Karen's control over the community started to break. Board members stepped down. Fletcher Pruitt took a seat and began asking the questions the neighborhood should have asked years earlier. Delia Pruitt's old wind chime fine was eventually cleared. On Evan's land, the orchard seedlings kept growing. The gate stayed locked, and the county line remained exactly where it had always been. In the end, the whole fight came down to one simple thing. When someone claims power over your property, do they have a document or just a performance? That is the question that should be in the comments.